Welcome to A Warm Embrace, your go-to destinations for all things motivation. I'm Guillermo Lopez, and I'm thrilled to embark on this journey with you to explore the endless possibilities of self-improvement, personal growth, and achieving your dreams. I will be answering questions given to me by my amazing social media manager and podcast administrator, John. Good morning, John.
Well, good morning, Guillermo. It is nice introduction.
Thank you very much. How are you?
I'm good. How about you, Guillermo?
I'm doing well, thank you.
We'll be discussing right now the power of adventure, or I think it is more on going outside your comfort zone.
Yes, I'm excited. I'm excited about this particular topic because I've had quite a bit of experience of late with adventure, and I'm excited to tell our followers about it.
Me too, actually. You motivated me to go jogging and running.
Oh, really? I'm glad.
Yeah, yeah, I'm
I'm
doing.
glad to hear that.
So, how can stepping out of one's comfort zone lead to personal empowerment?
It opens up so many different possibilities to you that you formerly didn't think was possible. That for me is really one of the biggest points when it comes to that, because we're all in our comfort zone. I think we've discussed this previously, that when we're all in our comfort zone, we like to go ahead and stay there because why? It makes us comfortable. But then the moment that you step out of that comfort zone and you do something different, you do something new, you feel liberated. I'm reminded of an example. About 2 years ago, I was in Mexico. I was in this retreat, and when I was in this retreat, they had different activities that we could partake in. Naturally, I've always been, I don't know if I've ever told you this, John, but one of the examples or one of the cartoon characters that I always related to when I was a kid came from the movie Tarzan. And I don't know if you remember Tantor, the elephant. And there's this one line in that movie when he dips his foot in the pond and he says, "This water looks questionable to me." And I've always laughed because I've always associated myself with being a tantor in life. That I would always ask myself, oh, what are the dangers? What are the hidden dangers? I would say things like, oh, this water looks questionable to me. So I've always laughed, but deep down inside, I always loved how Tarzan just leapt on the vine and landed in the water. There was something so liberating just by seeing that interaction, but also seeing how one character can go ahead and proceed through life in one way, and another character can proceed through life in another way. So carefree without any worry. So that reminded me, I was reminded of that rather when I was in Mexico. We had been offered the opportunity to choose an activity. It was an adventurous activity, if you will. And I think that if I'm not mistaken, the three activities that you could choose from were horseback riding on the beach, you can go zip lining, and you could also go ATV race. And it was funny because horseback riding has never been something that really interested. So really it was between the two other options. It was zip lining and ATV racing. My natural inner tantor kicked in. I chose the ATV racing. And despite the fact that I would have wanted to do the zip lining, a la Tarzan, right? And I chose the ATV race, and then I was content with my decision and I proceeded along. And then my wife came and asked me, she goes, "I bet you chose the zip line." And I go, "No, actually, I chose the ATV riding." And she says, And I go, "What?" And she said, "I would have thought that you would have done zip lining because you have been saying that you wanted to fly. You have been wanting to be more adventurous. And that's something that I knew was so exciting for you." And I stayed quiet. And she said to me, "Why did you pick the safe route?" And here I am thinking, of course, ATVs are not necessarily the safest thing, right? But in comparison to ziplining, I just felt that ATVs being on the ground versus being in the air was going to be safer. And then she said, "Your safety net kicked in, didn't it?" And I said, "Yes." She goes, "No, we're not going to let this happen." She goes, "Tomorrow morning, before we actually go out on our adventures," she actually chose horseback riding, by the way. That was her adventure that she wanted to choose. But for me, she said, "Before we go on our separate adventures, we're going to go have them change your activity because I know that you want ziplining." And interestingly enough, that was the best decision that could have made. It was the best decision that I could have made was to listen to her who knew me. I mean, we've had this conversation before in terms of being witnesses to each other's lives and how spouses can know us better than sometimes we know ourselves, or how best friends can know each other better than we know ourselves. But she knew me. She knew that, and she told me, she goes, no, you're going to do what you really want to. And it wasn't, I know for some, they may think, oh, she was pushing you to do something that you may not have wanted to do. But no, in this particular case, she truly knew me, and she pushed me to do something that I really wanted to do. And that decision made all the difference. It was so exciting. It was so exciting. And the activities were amazing. The zip lining was amazing, to the point where, as after I signed up for the zip lining, I was so excited to do it that I was shaking with anticipation, to the point that in the group that I was in, I ended up being the first person in zip lining. And just to give you a little bit more of a backstory of how inexperienced or innocent I was in terms of zip lining, I was that first person to go on that first line. And I said, that was amazing. I was just so sad that it ended so quickly. And the guy looked at me thinking that I was joking. And I looked back and I go, what? What? And he goes, oh, no, these are actually 8 different lines that we're going to be doing. And you can imagine the excitement that washed over, because of the fact that here I had crossed over into a new comfort zone of excitement. I was able to do this one zip line, and I was so excited about it. And then I was rather sad that it finished so quickly. But then to learn that I had 8 more lines to go through, that was a true experience. So going back to your question, John, the whole idea of it opens up so many different possibilities. Since then, I've done other zip lining activities. We've talked about my jumping off of a cliff. I've done whitewater rafting, all of these different activities that in my prior life, in my prior form, as my prior tantor, I would not have done. But the moment I literally left, I was able to do something so exciting that it gave me more possibilities of more adventurous things to do.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that experience, because it's quite interesting, and I'm really happy that the Rota pushes you to
Yes.
do the zip line. I tried it also here in the Philippines, and it's quite scary. I don't want to try it again.
Again, you've done it already?
Yeah, and then your fate must be on the zip line itself, because you don't
Yes.
have anything to do. You're just flying in the air.
Exactly, but that's the most amazing thing, the fact that you can fly. I think that is beautiful. I loved it. I loved it. So hopefully you'll give it another chance.
Yeah, definitely. Can you share a memorable adventure or journey that transformed your perspective or empowered you in some way?
I think I may have jumped the gun by giving you that example in the first one. But yes, there is an example in terms of a journey that really impacted. I was always, with the exception of my early years, I was a heavy set child, to the point that I was always, if not the largest, one of the largest children in my class. I grew up bigger than everyone else, to the point where I was at one point at my highest, if I'm not mistaken, upwards of 465 pounds. I'm not quite certain what the conversion rate is in kilos. And unwittingly, one day I developed what can only be heavenly ailment, if you will.
Divine intervention.
A divine intervention, yes. A divine intervention, and I don't doubt it. I developed a knee pain that was later diagnosed by a doctor as a sports injury, which is it was ironic at the time, because I said to the doctor, how can this be a sports injury when I don't do sports? He goes, that's what it's called, because usually that is where it comes from, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's exclusively how my knee was hurting. So it wasn't broken, it was just sprained, if you will. And so I was off feet for an entire week. In that week, I was eating differently. By having eaten differently, when I was back on my feet, then I noticed that when I went back to work, I noticed that my clothes were fitting a little bit looser. I like this feeling. And that set me off on this journey to shed upwards of 200 pounds. At
Wow.
my lowest, I shed upwards of 250. So with exercise, I'm now 200 pounds less. It's so interesting that journey took me in a direction that I never thought I was going to go, to the point where I started exercising more. One day I went for a walk, and then I went for a longer walk until eventually I started running. An interesting fact about running was the fact that all my dreams, and my literal dreams, when I was sleeping, it was funny that as I was growing up, I never dreamt that I would get from one place to another walking or flying. My dreams, so vividly, I remember that I always ran from one place to the other. It was funny that I was meant to be a runner. I always thought that was funny, but it was this journey that even got me to running. And I started running, and that of course assisted me in the weight loss even more. I'm certainly not at my goal weight yet. It's keeping me healthy. And running is one of these things that I enjoy doing. Not as much as I dreamed that I would enjoy doing, but I still do it. And that actually led me to even do 2 triathlons.
Wow.
And that was something that I never thought I would do. I mean, when I was living in Kansas City for 10 years, I had very athletic friends. My wife and I had very athletic friends, so much so that these friends were Iron men and women. They did the full distance Ironman triathlon, and I would always be in awe of them. And so much so, my wife and I even joined a kickball league, and we were playing, but of course we were in the recreational side, but a lot of our friends in the competitive side, they were also these triathletes, so much so that we actually traveled from Kansas City one time to Madison, Wisconsin to cheer one of our friends on. She was doing, I believe it was her second or third Ironman triathlon at the time, and we volunteered. And I was just amazed at the ability of the human body to be able to go ahead and endure such stress and such strain on the body. But these people would come out so much stronger. And it was a great equalizer in terms of body types, if you will, because you would see larger individuals. They were beating what I would at that time thought was like the most athletic build. And I thought that was so interesting because it involves 3 different disciplines: the swimming, the biking, and the running. It was that what I considered a very equalizing race. And when I eventually did my own triathlons, granted, my triathlons were sprint triathlons. They weren't in any way the same distance that our friends did them. One of the things that I learned was the fact that, yes, I'm not the strongest swimmer. In fact, when I grew up, my swimming was limited to not drowning in a pool. I never took formal lessons, absent like 1 or 2. Like, I was never formally trained. I just remember that in summer camp, they had classes where they taught us a little bit of a proper form just to make sure that you're not drowning. But the emphasis in summer camp is to splash around, is to really enjoy just being on the water. And I've always loved the water, but what was interesting about that is that I never learned to swim correctly. And so when I did my triathlon, I came in dead last in the swim. I was the last person out of the water. But then my bike, I was able to catch up to people who had swam a lot of their lives or were stronger swimmers, to the point where, because my wife swam for years when she was younger, she swam through high school. So she was a very strong swimmer. It got to the point that I was actually able to catch up to her and pass her on the bike and eventually finish my triathlon before her because I ran. My wife is a very fit woman, and that was a very proud moment for me because I never had thought that that was something that I would ever be able to do. How in these examples I'm able to, by giving that to you, is by able to say that I never would have thought that was possible until you take that first step. And I think that we've spoken about this before in terms of some of our other podcast episodes, where it's like, what is it that you have to do? You take that first step. And I think that that really was something that stuck with me, even after all this time. It's been years that I just need to take that next step. And that was something that was really life-changing for me. And it's actually led to wonderful things that, again, I never thought in my wildest dreams when I was younger that I would ever be able to do. I mean, I never would have thought that I was ever going to be to swim quarter of a mile, much less do a full sprint triathlon. So that was something that was very empowering for me, how things can be done aside from those mental limitations that we put on ourselves. Once you're actually able to break out of that comfort zone, your circle of comfort becomes all that wider, all the much bigger. And I think that that really is something that's so amazing that we as human beings can do.
I'm taking notes right now, Guillermo. Just take the first, just take the first step, and the rest will follow.
Yes, that's true. Take the first step and the rest will follow.
Well, what advice would you give to someone hesitant to embark on adventure or take a risk in their life?
It may sound funny, but sometimes I hear that here in the US, there's a little line, a joking line, when you do something that's out of your comfort zone. I think the question is, but did you die? It's always said in a very joking way, but the truth is, absent death or absent physical injury, there really isn't much risk in taking a step out of your comfort zone. There is risk. When I say there isn't much risk, there isn't much risk of danger, of pain. There's always risk, but at the end of the day, usually once you take that step that you were dreading taking, you're usually much happier that you took that step than if you had not. And that's what I'm trying to get at. On the physical standpoint, what I've been able to accomplish, what I've been able to do would not have been possible if I hadn't taken that first step. And look at where I am now. I'm excited about life. I'm excited about the possibilities of all these amazing things that we as human beings can do and can accomplish. I mean, there are so many different adventures that I still have yet to do and that I want to go ahead and do. Think even back to how recently I just did the 12-hour walk. That was something that I was inspired to do by talk that I went to listen to by fellow motivational speaker. And I was sitting in his audience and he spoke about the 12-hour walk and how it really created something in him or really opened up something in him and how that inspired me to go ahead and do it. And it was funny because I was even speaking to my coach recently. Yes. And I say that honestly because we all need our own levels of motivation. So I still have coaching calls with a coach of mine. And we were talking about it. And he said, you know what, Guillermo, you had talked about early on in this year that you wanted more adventure in your life. And that was as a result of like the past 2 years of having so much adventure and so much joy as a result of that I wanted more. And he said, when is your next adventure? And when he asked me that question, the first thing that came to my mind was that 12-hour walk. While some people might say, well, that's not really an adventure. Other people will say, wow, that's a long adventure. I couldn't be able to do it. So it runs the gamut as far as the experiences. But that was an adventure for me. That was an adventure that I didn't have to plan for. That was an adventure that literally I could take the first step. The rest, as you say, John, will follow. And that was something that I am so grateful for because at the end of the day, I am now sitting here speaking to you and speaking to our audience members, our listeners, and our viewers, talking about the fact that adventure is everywhere. You just need to take that first step and you can go ahead and see that as soon as you take that first step, you can ask yourself, but did you die? You can say that in a funny way because you're going to see that taking that first step wasn't detrimental in any way to you. Rather, it was empowering. It led to a series and a sequence of how many more steps to achieve something. And that's the beautiful thing.
Well, thank you so much for that, Guillermo. The 12-hour walk is an adventure for me. Not everyone can do it, actually.
Exactly. Not everyone can do it. So think about it. If you can do it, why should you not? I think I've told you, it's like this to me was a prelude because I had always wanted to do the Camino. There is these pilgrimages in Europe. They call it the road to Compostela. I've always wanted to do that. And some parts of me were like, oh, I can't believe my former tantor. And I readily embraced that former tantor because he was attempting to protect me. I love my former tantor. I embrace him, but I say goodbye to him with love. So when I speak of him, I don't speak of him with anger. I don't speak of him with ire. I speak of him with love because what was he trying to do? He was trying to protect me. And so in the past, when I had wanted to think about doing a Camino, my inner Tantor would say, oh no, we can't do that. I knew that he was doing it for self-preservation. But now, with this new inner Tarzan, if you will, this new desire for adventure, I went out and I did this, and now I'm looking forward to the possibility of doing more. And that really is the beauty of it. It really goes back to that, to the answer to one of your prior questions. It was the fact that how many different doors are opening as a result. The possibilities are endless. And that is the beautiful thing.
To some people, adventure is totally different from you too. For example,
Yes.
I have friend Guillermo. He's on the 40s now. He enrolled himself in a hip hop dance class. So that's the adventure that he's taking at this moment. But he's now 40s, right?
And that's amazing. I love that. It's funny because when I was in my 30s, I took a hip hop dance class. And I wanted to take those dance classes is because at the end of the day, I wanted to be able to connect with my body more. And I don't know how better I could explain it, but it was just one of these things. It's like friends of mine were like saying, you know what, we're going to join this dance class. I said, you know what, I want to join that too. And at the end, I was the last one that stayed in the class. They had joined and then life got the better of them. They said, it's like, oh, I have to drop out of the class. But I stayed in for the entire term. It was something that I enjoyed doing so much so. And I thank you for even bringing up the example of your friend, because I had even been saying recently, oh, I want to take another dance class. There's a level of fluidity. And when you're able to connect with your body, be able to move more, it allows for you to be more comfortable. Be more comfortable in yourself, be more comfortable in your body. And that gives you more of an impetus, more of a desire to be more adventurous, because then you feel, oh, wow, I'm strong in this body. I'm strong in the here and now. I know that my body will be able to support me in this adventurous endeavor. So kudos to your friend. I think that that is amazing. Please let him know that he just re-inspired me to look up local classes, because it really is an amazing adventure. It's awesome. And I think that that is so cool of him to do. And he reignited something in me. So thank you for that. To both of you.
You're welcome, Guillermo. In what ways can adventure and exploration contribute to personal growth and self-discovery?
It really goes to the whole notion of being able to dismiss limitations. We as human beings have these limiting beliefs. We have a mindset that actually limits us to what it is that we think that we can achieve, or we think that we can go ahead and do. But if you start with something that may, in most of our minds, think it's like, oh, this is not something that truly matters in the grand scheme of things, if you will. So it's like, oh, it's not going to go ahead and affect my business. It's not going to go ahead and affect my work. It's not going to go ahead and affect my livelihood. We're more apt to try to go ahead and be a little bit more adventurous, right? And so that's the truth of the matter. When we are able to see something, think of something that you don't necessarily hold so strongly to, or that you give so much importance to. So of course, I'm not going to go ahead and tell you, go out and quit your job right now. What I'm saying is, you find something that doesn't necessarily worry you so much that you're willing to go ahead and do. John, you told me about even just starting to jog, starting to run. That was something that you wanted to go ahead and start doing. And look at what it's been able to open up for you. What are the different things that you feel that you can go ahead and do? Even like, if I'm not mistaken, John, the last time we spoke about the 12-hour walk, I think at one point you said, oh, I could never do that. And then even now, having this conversation, you said, wow, I'm taking notes so that I can see about doing a 12-hour walk. Look at that shift in that conversation, just that shift in the words that you said. Before you said, I can't do that, or I wouldn't ever be able to do that. Now you're saying, I'm going to take notes so that I can do it. Just that change is amazing. And that just opens up to the different possibilities of what we are capable of. And so that's where I think that adventure is an example of that, because it opens up possibilities and it totally destroys limiting beliefs. Please don't get me wrong, John. At this point, I still have my own limiting beliefs. It's like I've even said, I've already done 2 triathlons. And my limiting belief has been, oh, but I've only done, even in this conversation, I was even said that I haven't done an Ironman. I've only done a sprint triathlon. I could never do an Ironman triathlon. That's something that I've said to myself. A sprint triathlon is a quarter-mile swim. It's a 10 or 20-mile bike ride. It is a 5K. That's something, and at the time, that was, to me, in my mind, that's doable. In an Ironman triathlon, that's a 2.5-mile swim. That's a 112-mile bike ride, and it's a full marathon, 26.2 miles run. That's a
Wow.
full day adventure. And so when I think of my triathlon and think about the Ironman triathlon, parts of my mind, my inner Tantor still tells me, oh, I can't do that. But when I go back and think of my inner Tantor before I did my triathlon, who said, oh, I could never do that, and then I did it, then I can go ahead and think, oh, wow, that was a limiting belief that I was able to overcome, that I was able to destroy. And who's to say that this new limiting belief that we as human beings are able to quickly replace a former limiting belief on, now I'm telling myself, I can go ahead and destroy that limiting belief because I've already overcome something before. And that's truly the whole beauty of adventure. That's truly the whole beauty of what we're talking about today, because these different activities that we do, the different challenges that we've overcome, and it's a challenge, granted, that with adventure, it's a challenge that we willingly overcome. It's not like the challenges that we have been forced to overcome. That's the main difference, because think about challenges that we have had to deal with in our lives. Sometimes those challenges present themselves and they're in our lives, but they're not something that we impose. It's something that we have to overcome because, you know what, at the end of the day, it's a challenge that life placed on us in order to teach us a lesson. At least that's how I like to think of it. God, in his benevolent grace, in his amazing wisdom, gave us these challenges that we have to overcome because we needed to learn the lesson and move forward in this life. Think about how we can go ahead and even think and learn from God's wisdom and challenge on ourselves as human beings and overcome that challenge. So think about doing like that first 5K. At no point in my life did I ever think that I could do a 5K before. And then I ran a 5K. Before I ran a 5K, I walked a 5K. And before I walked that 5K, I didn't think that I could ever just be involved in it. I remember my first 5K that I did, and I was walked the entire, and I did not even reach, if I'm not mistaken, I had not even reached the halfway point when I saw the front runners. Oh, no, actually, they were running the marathon. It was a combination race, excuse me. I had not even reached the halfway point of my 5K when these runners were already approaching the halfway point of their marathon. I was flabbergasted at how these men and women were running with such ease and beauty, because that's the only thing that I could describe it. It's like there was no anger or envy of that. I just was in awe seeing them pass because they were running with such grace. And that was something I was like, oh, if I remember telling myself at that time, if only I could run like that. And eventually I was able to be in a race similar to the one that I was in at that moment. And I was able to run the whole thing. And that was something that was a challenge that I put on myself that I was able to overcome. And that really is the beauty of what adventure can go ahead and do for you. That really is something that we can go ahead and play that role of placing challenges in front of us and be able to overcome them, but with joy, with excitement. That's the beauty. That's the key that I really want our listeners to truly take away from this talk, is that adventure gives us the ability to place challenges in front of us and gives us the ability to overcome them with joy and excitement. It really is playing a game. I mean, one of my favorite things I remember when I was little is I loved board games. I loved board games because it really, to me, board games were the possibility of just everybody coming together and play board games. And I don't recall ever being that truly competitive in playing the board games. To me, my excitement was everybody coming together and playing. But if I also think about it, what is a game? A game, there has to be, somebody has to win or lose. And if in this particular case, you take on a challenge and you make it a game, you're the only one that's going to win. You're already setting yourself up for success. You are the winner. And therefore, you're the one that's going to enjoy that victory and you're going to have fun doing it in the process. That really is what I want to get our followers and our listeners and our viewers to get out of this, because at the end of the day, you're allowing yourself that fun. Because look, life gives us so many things to not have fun about. But if we can go ahead and give ourselves that fun, why not? And that is truly a special thing.
Well, thank you so much for this, Guillermo. I think this is the last question that we have right now for this episode. How can we incorporate elements of adventure into our daily lives to cultivate a sense of empowerment and excitement?
Oh, find joy in everything that you do. So, for example, one of the things that I do every single morning, and it was interesting because yesterday it was raining here in Miami, and I didn't get a chance to go do my outdoor workout in the morning. And so my morning was completely off to the point that I was at the office. I was referring to the microwave as a microphone. We were talking about having two different appliances on at the same time. And I was like, oh, yeah, well, yesterday I was actually able to use the coffee maker and the microphone at the same time. It was a funny thing, but I was completely off. I was able to laugh about that. And then this morning when I went out for my workout, I was outside and I truly had fun being outside. It was a joy to be outside. And I think that one of the things that we can go ahead and do and make it an adventure is try to go ahead and do something differently. One of the things that I try to go ahead and do when I'm outside is I try to go on a different route. And when I do the different routes, it's twofold. It's a mental game that I play because at the end of the day, I'm trying to find my way back to my house in a way that I haven't been before. So it's my puzzle solving skills. I need to go ahead and find my way back. I don't use my phone's GPS to take me back. I just go a different way. And it's like a challenge. It's a challenge. And just doing that. Or think about if you're doing a run, let me see if I can go ahead and beat my time by 5 seconds today. Or maybe I can go ahead or 30 seconds. Do a race with yourself. That's how you can really make the activity fun. Do something different. Make a game. And it's like at the end of the day, sometimes I even tell myself little jokes. I play stand-up comedian and I tell myself jokes that sometimes I'm like walking and I'm like laughing to myself. And all of a sudden I realize that somebody's looking at me. And my biggest fear at that point is like, oh, I hope they don't think that I'm laughing at them. And of course I give them a big good morning and I say hello. But at the end of the day, those are little challenges that we can go ahead and do. Think about one of the things that I used to love doing was also doing the crossword puzzles. I like crossword puzzles because I like words. See how you can go ahead and beat your time or go into something a little bit more, a puzzle that's a little bit harder in scale, or try another game. All of these are different things that you can go ahead and do, or begin planning an adventure trip. Begin planning something that you've never done, and that will give you the excitement that you probably weren't expecting, or the part that you probably didn't have in you before. All of these are just little tricks and little tips that you can go ahead and do, because at the end of the day, those are just concepts that make life a little bit more exciting. We all know, or for those that don't know, there's this quote that says, live today as if today was your last day on earth. What would you do differently? For example, that truly is sometimes it's a contradiction, because I sometimes tell myself, oh, wow, what did I do today that I would have been proud that today was my last day on earth? That's a question that I ask myself. And it's a very invaluable question to ask, because what did you just go through the motions? Right? I say, Guillermo, do something good. Did you do something exciting when you think about it? Because when you do think about it, if you, John, knew that today was your last day on earth, what would you be doing? I have a feeling you probably would be like skydiving. You probably would be ziplining, because at the end of the day, if today is your last day on earth, I, for one, would want to go skydiving, because that means my last moment on earth was in the air, or scuba diving, or something along the lines of something so fun. I would want to be doing something so fun, like flying. I think there's something so amazing about taking flights, and I think that's why I keep going back to, in terms of like the zip lining and the skydiving, just feeling weightless and feeling effortless, and just wanting to go ahead and be in that feeling, that experience, and that rush. That is something that we can go ahead and just do for ourselves. Give yourself that gift. Plan something. Play a game with yourself. Play a game with others, and have fun doing it along the way, because that's the best way that you can go ahead and really treat yourself in the way that you should be treated, and the way that you deserve to be treated, and in leading a life without obstacles and without limitations that you know you can overcome.
Thank you so much for that, Guillermo. I learned so much with today's episode. Actually, I'm taking notes.
Thank you, John. I
Any
appreciate it. I very much appreciate you giving me the time to be able to talk about this. And as you can see, I'm excited about this particular topic because it really gives life. And if I were to like really condense this episode in a way that I can go ahead and would like our audience to go ahead and take something away. Think about that one concept that I said. Adventure is the ability to go ahead and establish a challenge for ourselves where we know we're going to win. That is, I think, if I can just sum it up that way, I think that's the beauty of adventure, where you can go ahead and overcome a challenge that you imposed on yourself. And the only winner that's going to come out of that is you. Not to mention your immediate family. Not to mention your immediate environment. People are going to start noticing a winner. We're all winners. We are all winners, and we just need to act that way. We need to move forward, and we need to walk forward, and we need to walk through life as winners, knowing that we are winning. We're winning life. We want to win life. We don't want life to win. We want to win life. Adventure is such a beautiful way to go ahead and do something that we can go ahead and come out as a winner. If you want to be like your friend John and take a hip hop dancing class, go for it.
I have plans.
There you go. And I'm so proud of you for that, because that's awesome. For those people who've always wanted to sing, go to a karaoke bar. I love karaoke bars. I'm amazed at how people just let out. I always joke with those closest to me. I always say it's like, oh, I have an instrument. And I credit that to my elementary chorus teacher. And that may be a story for another time. But do something fun. Do something amazing. Because again, the only person that is going to win in this particular case is you. And the only way that you'll lose is if you don't do it, because you're going to stay the same. That really is what I wanted to drive home here. And so I thank you, John, for this amazing time. Thank you so much to our audience members for giving us the space and for being present. And hopefully I was able to go ahead and inspire you in even a small way to go out and have fun and overcome a challenge that you can go ahead and impose on yourself. If you've enjoyed this topic and if you've enjoyed our past topics, please give us a like. Please subscribe to our channel. We are available on all social media platforms. John, I know, is placing our links in the descriptions and in the captions, and we appreciate all of you and all your time. And once again, and always, from my heart to yours, a warm embrace.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider supporting us by liking and subscribing to our channel. Your small gesture means the world to us and helps us continue creating more content like this. See you in the next video.